Well, when a kid is not imitating, it could be that there's a social disruption, meaning he's not engaging with other people in his environment. He doesn't notice other people in his environment. He doesn't take in, he doesn't process that incoming information about other people well enough to be able to do what they do. So that's kind of the foundational piece. And guess what? That's why he's not talking. All right? And so we have to look at imitation from way back there as kind of a social skill before we can ever think about it being an expressive language skill. All right? A kid who's not imitating may have some very real differences in his or her sensory processing ability, how they take in incoming information. They may have, and I love this example, and I've heard this before, and I've had people tell it to me too. I don't remember where I initially read it or heard it, but again, it's impacted other people well enough for them to talk to me about it. But the whole theory of this child has so much internal noise going on that he has to block out everything else because it's so intrinsically disorganized, and he's doing everything he can to kind of stay afloat so that he has to block everything else out. And again, that's a kid who's really struggling with regulation and with calming and those kinds of issues. And again, that's why he's not talking yet. His sensory processing system is so out of whack, for lack of a better term, that he can't talk yet. And so when a kid's not imitating, we have to look at that piece too. It may be a cognitive issue, like we talked about before. That child is not yet to the 9 to 12 month developmental level. Cognitively, he or she is hanging around there at 3 months, at 6 months. Guess what? Those kids are not developmentally ready to talk. They're not. Okay? So that kind of gets you back to that point. That lack of imitation tells you, gosh, there's something really going on here cognitively, and that's the foundation for language, and that's it. That's the reason. It could be that their motor skills don't allow them to imitate what they've seen someone else do. And again, as speech pathologists, we think about verbal motor skills, but it could also be applicable to their whole little bodies. So again, you've got to kind of look at that motor system. It could be their motor skills are disrupted. And again, we know that when a child is not imitating verbally, that there's a communication issue going on. We know that's going to be there, hands down, no more discussion. That's a bona fide problem when you get a child over the age of 12 months who's not doing these things. We can make those general assumptions. Why does all of this matter? Because if you're not working on the right goals, you won't see any progress, especially when there are multiple underlying reasons that the child is not talking. When it's more than just like talking, our treatment plans absolutely have to reflect those differences, and they have to include more than just expressive language goals. That's not what this particular conference is about. We are talking about building verbal imitation. So that in and of itself is expressive language. But I really, really, really want to encourage you to think about all that has to come first. And again, that's not what this conference is about. If you haven't seen my first conference, Early Speech Language Development, Taking Theory to the Floor, I highly recommend that as a prerequisite. And for all of those children who aren't quite ready to work on the things that we're going to talk about here today. All right, looking at a child's imitation skills will get you on the right track when they are ready to make expressive language progress in that area. Your focus is going to be on the reason and on the exact place in that child's development where he's experiencing that breakdown. Now, we're going to be talking about this today, and I call these levels of building verbal imitation in toddlers. And these levels come from typical developmental sequences. And again, they're based on those social, cognitive, motor, language, and speech developmental milestones. Now, all the levels in this particular method have prerequisites, because that's going to let you know if a child can do this, start here, or the converse of that idea. If the child can't do this, you better back it on up and get to a place where they can be successful. These levels also break expressive speech and language development down into tiny steps. Why is that important? Because that makes it easy for parents to understand, and it makes it easier for us to explain. And more importantly, it gives us the very best starting point for treatment. Oftentimes in our treatment plans, we as speech-language pathologists jump straight to words. The developmental phase of using single words to imitate. Many children just simply are not ready when we first see them in therapy. Or even if we worked with them for months, they're still not developmentally to the point where they can be successful working toward imitating at the single level. And again, we have to be sure that we are meeting a child where he or she is developmentally. Now, this goes a long, long, long way to ensuring success, especially really early in your treatment. Why is early success so important? It benefits everybody. The kids benefit because they feel good at something. They feel like, I can do this. Like, this is fun. I'm getting praise. I'm on the right track. Even if they can't really verbalize that or even think that, even toddlers like to do things they're good at, right? Most of our little friends love it when we clap and say yay, and they can sense that we are really, really happy with them. So that's why we would want to ensure success early from our little client standpoint. What about parents? Parents are going to feel better about you and your skills if you can demonstrate some progress really, really early. Some of them think you're so good at what you're doing that you're even magic. Have you had a parent kind of say that or feel that way or think that about you before? And so again, we want them to see that early success. We want them to understand what we're doing and what we're working toward. And that's going to make them feel better about having their child under our care. What about you? Do you feel better when you achieve success? Oh my gosh, I do. I'm a praise junkie. I love it when I think, good job. I'm on the right track here. So again, that's why it's so important that you figure out exactly where a child is in this continuum. You meet him where he is so that you can get that early success going, and so you don't have months and months and months of no measurable change or no change that you're tracking and targeting. All right, so let's talk about these levels of imitation.